Billy James Johnson was born November 24, 1919 in Caney, Kentucky, to William and Zella Johnson. He was one of 9 children. His father worked as an oil driller and did other jobs during the Great Depression. The family moved frequently, living in at least 7 states between 1905 and 1940. Billy enlisted in the United States Navy from Missouri on July 8, 1940. His first and only assignment was on board the battleship Oklahoma. He arrived on board October 12, 1940, while the ship was undergoing repairs at Puget Sound prior to returning to its home base of Pearl Harbor, where he was assigned to the ship's engine room. Details of Johnson's service are not known, but he must have performed his duties well as he steadily advanced in rate, reaching Fireman First Class on September 1, 1941. Johnson lost his life and his identity when the ship he called home for more than 15 months was attacked while it was moored at U.S. Naval Base at Pearl Harbor. Sailors on board USS Oklahoma awoke to a low morning sun, light clouds, and a breeze that Sunday morning. Some were sluggish from Saturday liberty, others prepared for religious services or looked forward to Sunday plans. Johnson, like many others, had recently sent home a Christmas card with a photo of himself in uniform. Just before 7:55, the ship's band and the Marine Color Guard gathered on the fantail in preparation for playing the national anthem and hoisting the morning colors. The daily ritual never took place. That morning, more than 350 Japanese attack planes launched in 2 waves from 6 Japanese carriers, initiating a surprise strike on Naval Base Pearl Harbor. The outboard ships, like Oklahoma, were the Japanese targets. In roughly 10 minutes, the ship was hit 9 times. The damage was devastating. As the ship rolled over, many became entombed. In all, 429 Oklahoma sailors perished. Of those, only 35 had their remains immediately recovered and buried in Oahu Cemetery. Billy Johnson's family was notified that he was missing in action on December 21. His Christmas card arrived the following day. A month later, his mother wrote Washington for confirmation that her son was gone.
I have waited and waited for some confirmation of my son, Billy James Johnson, as a casualty in Pearl Harbor. There remains a doubt in my mind, and I would greatly appreciate your giving me definite proof to the best of your ability that he is indeed deceased and our honored dead in the service of his country.
The Navy officially confirmed his death and that he could not be recovered in February 1942. When the Navy assessed the salvageability of the ship's loss, it determined that Oklahoma had rolled into the harbor's main channel and needed to be moved. Salvage operations began in July 1942 and continued well into 1944. In the time elapsed after the ship sank, the remains of the sailors decomposed and began commingling. While the names of the missing were known, individual identification became impossible. Salvage divers and medics faced the gruesome task of recovering the remains. Accounting for those lost was deemed as important as refloating the ship. Once located, medics placed each sailor in a canvas bag. Then, each were taken above, placed in individual caskets, shrouded in an American flag, and brought ashore for burial at Halawa Cemetery. Chaplains held services on site twice weekly. A Marine Honor Guard stood watch on the ship until recovery operations ceased. In 1947, Oklahoma's unidentified crew were exhumed and taken to a lab near Pearl Harbor in an attempt to identify sailors' remains. With only rudimentary methods available, 27 possible identifications were initially made, but later rejected. Expecting reburial in group graves, the lab placed bones into caskets based on type, only to learn later that the military wanted them assembled as complete skeletons. Remains were then reassembled as best they could be and placed in 51 graves marked unknown in the newly opened National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific, located in the Punch Bowl volcano crater. That year, Billy's mother, now widowed, attempted to have her son returned to her. She was told that he was not identified and likely buried with his shipmates as an unknown. She died in 1952, never knowing the final whereabouts of her son. In the early 2000s, compelling archival evidence and advances in forensic science led to disinterments and positive identifications of small sample of Oklahoma's unknown. These disinterments revealed the scope of commingling and gave scientists a better understanding of future challenges. In 2015, the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency worked with the National Cemetery Administration to exhume all of Oklahoma's unknowns from the Punch Bowl Cemetery for comprehensive analysis at Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska. As of November 2020, the POW MIA accounting agency has given back the names of 270 sailors using the most advanced technology available. Fireman First Class Billy James Johnson became the 200th sailor positively identified on February 26, 2019. His case highlights the complexity of the project as the fragments that made up his final remains were found in several different caskets. His descendants chose to have his remains interred at Santa Fe National Cemetery, the place near where his family lived before the war and where his sister established roots. His return filled a family void felt for nearly 78 years. Family members from across the country came together for his final burial. A poem his sister wrote in grief after his death was read by his great-niece at the funeral.
Today we got the message, and it filled our hearts with pain, for we grieve for our dear brother, who won't be with us ever again. We didn't want to give him up, but he had just one life to give, and he gave it for his country, so that we in peace may live.
Johnson is now at rest and is remembered along with millions of other veterans in the National Cemetery system. The National Cemetery Administration strives to ensure that none of the veterans interred in their cemeteries ever truly die, as their names and their stories will be forever spoken.